Hi, my name is SaiqaKhan, and I am a mother, wife, and surgeon, and I also have a child with special needs. I've learned a lot over the past 3.5, almost 4 years, and so I thought I would put together a PowerPoint presentation to share the knowledge that I have gained, the wisdom that I have gained, and also some learnings that I have gained, pearls of wisdom, so to speak, and perspective shifts that I have learned the hard way to potentially make your journey a little bit easier. So, this talk is on special needs empowerment and the empowerment of a child with special needs or disabilities or medically complex issues. The empowerment of that child begins with the empowerment of the parents, and that comes not only through learning, not only through information and knowledge and access to specialists and access to resources, but also it comes from a belief in oneself. And so that is what this masterclass is basically going to be teaching. Not only the tactical strategies and the nuts and bolts, but also the philosophy and the inner work that takes place in order to put you in a position where you can optimally provide for your child and support their development and future. So it's likely that you just discovered your child will have unique challenges and needs. And so I'm here to tell you that this doesn't mean life is over. It doesn't mean that everything is coming to a huge halt. But instead, this means that a new life is beginning. And there are ways that you can leverage this unexpected news, and you can give your child and your family the best life possible. And it starts with you. So step number 1 is to feel your feelings and don't hide from your feelings. So this means breathe, feel, reflect. There are going to be a lot of feelings and emotions that come up, and all of these feelings and emotions are totally normal, valid, expected. So allow everything to come up. Take the time to really process and grieve. And it doesn't mean that you're grieving this beautiful child that you have, but instead you are grieving the vision of life and the future that you envisioned while you were pregnant with this child, perhaps. You had likely envisioned where this child was going to attend school, where you were going to live, what your career was going to look like, and none of that vision included navigating a journey of special needs or medically complex issues or surprises that you hadn't planned for. And so it is normal and valid and expected to have grief. And also, when you feel these initial feelings that come up, it doesn't mean that you feel them and then it's done, over with, you're good to go. There are going to be feelings and emotions that come up throughout the journey at many different pivot points, turning points, forks in the road. There are going to be more kind of high intensity feelings that come up along the way. Not only negative feelings, so to speak, negative in quotation marks here, but positive feelings too. You might end up feeling more joy and happiness than you could have ever imagined when your child sits on their own for the first time, supporting themselves, or when your child stands for the first time, or takes their first step, or says their first word, even if they're 4 years old or 10 years old when this happens. And so that's where it's important to understand that you're going to have a lot of feelings in the initial period when you're first hit with the diagnosis. And then it's also important to allow yourself to lean into the joy, lean into the happiness, lean into the beautiful moments. So make space for this different vision of a different future that might actually have more joy, more peace, more beauty, more feelings and emotions than you could have ever envisioned or imagined. And I will ask you, what if a life beyond your wildest dreams actually awaits? So, step number 2 is the restructuring. So, it's important that you take a life inventory. Take an inventory of your resources, your career flexibility, your support system, your capacity for time off, your capacity for flexibility in your schedule. What are some areas where you can increase your bandwidth? What are some areas where you can increase your flexibility? Come up with a plan for communication and connection with your partner, whether your partner is your husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, or just the partner that you have who's helping you raise your child. It's important to have a strong network of people for support. And it's also important to have flexibility and adaptability, not only within yourself and how you view yourself and how you view your identity, but also in your schedule, in your time. And so I bring up the identity and flexibility and adaptability in your identity because you are going to have to shift and mold your perspectives, your career, maybe your career trajectory. And so we'll get to that later in this talk. So, step number 3 is to get plugged in. Now, this is part of the tactical strategy. Okay, so you need to get your child plugged in with early childhood intervention. Through ECI, your child will be able to receive services, meaning therapies such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, vision impairment therapy. And so this is really important. And the sooner that you can get plugged in, the better. It's also important to get plugged in with a medical specialist. And you might not know which medical specialists you're going to need. It might come with time as you have more appointments, as you have more diagnostic tests, as you have more doctor's visits. Maybe new things are going to come to light, and it's going to be sort of a journey of discovery in the beginning. And so it's important that once you figure out that you might need to see a certain specialist, that you make the phone call and get an appointment as soon as you can, because sometimes the wait lists are 6 months, a year long, especially for developmental pediatrics. So in the beginning, it can be very overwhelming. I know for our daughter, we were having doctor's appointments every single week. And every single week, we were figuring out new information. And it was a lot to process. It was a lot to deal with emotionally. But also, it was a lot of time that needed to be spent on the phone, scheduling these appointments, and getting plugged in to the right specialists. And so, along those lines, you need to make sure that your health insurance is in alignment with your goals. And it's important to speak to your doctors and your therapists to find out which health insurance they might recommend. And sometimes there might not be clear, many options for you, but it's important to at least, if you can pick your health insurance, pick the one that's going to help cover the most costs for surgical procedures or for medical devices, depending on what you think your child is going to need. And so along those lines, you can also optimize your Medicaid options by speaking with your local social workers. So when you go to these doctor's appointments, there's usually a social worker that you can have access to who can help you apply to be on certain wait lists and apply for certain things that are going to help you not only now but also in your future and help your child in their future. Some of these wait lists are 14 years long. So it's important that you get on these lists to get this additional aid as soon as you can. So to summarize steps 1 through 3, feel your feelings, feel all the emotions that come up, restructure, take a life inventory, and restructure where you can. And the third step is get plugged in with a specialist, early childhood intervention, social workers, health insurance, everything that you're going to need. So now we're going to move on to talking about pillars of strength. So we have internal pillars of strength and external pillars of strength. The internal ones we're going to talk about in the next slide. The external ones include marriage, your partnership, your family, your friends, and your career, and the flexibility that you might have in your job. So for internal pillars of strength, you want to check in with yourself and make sure that you have some sort of personal replenishment program in place where you're taking time for yourself, for reflection, for processing, for journaling, for thinking, and also making sure that you're creating space for cognitive time, cognitive space, where you can really think about how you can best support your child and how you can continue to give your child incredible experiences and give them what they need. So keep your mind and your heart open and trust in yourself and believe in yourself. And this is where the personal empowerment comes into play, because it is you and only you and your partner who are providing direct care for your child, who are spending the most time with your child, and who know your child the best. And so you are going to know what your child needs better than anyone else, better than even some of the specialists that you're seeing. And so you really have to trust in yourself, and you really have to trust in your ability to observe and to identify what your child needs and what is going to drive them forward and what is going to support their development the most. So other pillars of strength include your medical support team, the specialists, the experts, the literature. I encourage you to read the literature, look up the research that's available on your child's diagnosis, on other children with similar diagnoses, and also reach out to the labs that are doing the research. You can email them. You can schedule a call with them. If you have questions, you can email them and ask about your child. And maybe they're performing research right now and they have information that hasn't even been published yet that you can have access to, or that you can even help them with and contribute to the work that they're doing. Another pillar of strength is the community. So other moms who have kids with special needs, a community similar to the one that we're building here. It doesn't have to be a community that consists of kids who have exactly the same diagnosis as your child, because maybe your child has an extraordinarily rare diagnosis. Like my child, for example, she has an extremely rare genetic syndrome, and only 300 kids in the world actually have this diagnosis. And she is the only one in the world who has her special findings, her special constellation of symptoms. And so it's going to be hard to find a community of people who have other kids like my daughter, but it's not hard to find a community of other moms who are caring for children with disabilities or with special needs or medically complex issues. So this slide is talking about getting your finances in order. So it's important to speak to a trust lawyer and establish your own disability insurance and life insurance, and make sure that you have systems in place to take over in case something were to happen to you and or your spouse if you were to pass away. And this is a real important topic, because it's not really something that I ever thought about until we were aware of the fact that our daughter really needs the both of us, or at least one of us, and so we had to think about who in our family, who in our circle would we trust to take over the care of our child, if something horrible were to happen. And so this is a conversation that you need to have with your significant other, so that you can rest assured that your child is going to have what they need if you're no longer around. So in this slide, we're talking about support devices. These are actual medical devices and equipment that are important and helpful for the development of your child. The first one on the list is a medical stander. So this is a standing device that you put your child in with their orthotic boots. So orthotic boots are special boots that the child wears to help support them in a standing position and to help them with when they're practicing their walking. And so the orthotic boots and the stander help support the child as they're learning how to stand and support their weight. It helps develop the muscle memory, the motor memory. It helps develop the nervous system. I feel like it helps their body understand what the sensation of standing is. And so another device is a TLSO vest. So this is a vest that goes around the body, the trunk, and it creates a little bit of compression, and it also helps support the spine. So this is helpful also when the child is learning how to stand and walk. It helps give an added bit of support so that the child has to worry less about supporting their weight, and they're able to understand more what it really feels like to be sitting up on their own and standing. The activity feeding chair is another device that's very helpful for, if your child is not standing or supporting their weight yet, this is a comfortable chair that they can sit in and do activities. It has a little slide-on desk that you can slide onto the chair so that they can do activities on that desk. And it has wheels, so you can wheel them outside and wheel them around the house to different areas. There is a device that the child can sit, straddle, and it has wheels, and it helps them in learning how to walk. So this is another device that you're going to want to make sure the orthotic boots are on, your child when they're in the gait trainer. And it helps them feel a little bit more supported as they're taking steps. An adapted tricycle is another special device where you're going to have your child wearing the orthotic boots, and they get seated in the tricycle, and their feet get strapped onto the pedals, and they can practice pushing their legs against the pedals of the tricycle. And so it's great because it simulates the reciprocal motion, left, right, alternate motion of the legs, which mimics walking, left, right, left, right. So the adapted tricycle is great. A bath chair is another special device that you could get that the child can sit in for bath time. I will say that the bath chair that we got is still way too big for my child, and she's almost 4 years old. So we have gotten a different bath option. Basically, there are different things you can get from Amazon, and maybe this is a different talk, but we used one thing where we basically padded the entire tub, and she could just lay down in the tub in a safe way, with us giving her the bath. And now we're using this inflatable bathtub, basically, that's soft and comfortable for her. So yeah, we don't actually use the bath chair device. The stroller wheelchair device is another great option for as your child gets bigger, because they're likely going to outgrow the actual stroller, like the Upper Baby stroller, for example. And so this wheelchair stroller is helpful because it gives you the option of having a comfortable stroller / wheel that you can, it's portable and practical and helpful for just activities, of daily living, going to and from appointments and whatnot. So you're also going to have to consider adapt your basic household items. So a play mat, it needs to be padded and thick and comfortable. The changing table, you might want to get a standing desk and convert that into a changing table as your child gets larger, bigger. Car seats, sometimes you might want to think about adapting them, padding them in extra ways. Same thing for strollers. We've tried a lot of different strollers and wagons and car seats, and so I can help answer a lot of questions when it comes to adapting basic items to fit the needs of your child. So I kind of mentioned this in one of the previous slides, but advocating for your child is extraordinarily important because, like I said before, you and your significant other know your child the best. And so when you're in medical appointments, therapy appointments, when you're in the hospital setting, say that you are undergoing a surgical procedure or you are requiring a hospital stay, if your child is sick, it is really up to you to advocate for your child, to make sure that they're getting the best care, to make sure they're getting appropriate care, and to make sure that the care your child is receiving actually makes sense to you. Ask the questions that you have. If you do have questions, if you do have concerns, voice them and do not sit in silence. So it's also important to advocate for your child when you're thinking about finding a great school, finding great therapists, moving up on the wait list to see specialists. Sometimes openings open up, and so it's really important that you're pushing the needle forward and making things happen for your child. So, like I said, you want to unapologetically take up space and advocate for your child, their needs, their care. If you have to seek second, third, fourth, fifth opinions from different specialists and doctors, just don't stop seeking opinions until you find a doctor whom you feel like you can really trust and where you feel like the treatment plan makes sense to you. And this is where I said earlier, you want to do your own research. You want to talk to the research labs. You want to make sure that you're up to date on all of the information so that you can present that research to the physician who is caring for your child. If you do have specific concerns or if you disagree with the treatment plan, don't be afraid to raise concerns, to raise questions, to push back. Don't be afraid to find a different physician altogether. Maybe one who has similar views as you and your significant other. Maybe one who shares similar values that are in alignment with yours. And I will tell you that I have definitely sought out many different opinions for my child. I have definitely disagreed with physicians. I have presented the literature. I have printed out papers and brought them to the physicians. And we have definitely gone against certain treatment plans that were provided for our child. And in the long run, we did what was best for our child, and we stand by that. And so we definitely don't have any regrets. And if we had done everything that we were told to do, our child would have had her eyes removed. She would have prosthetic eyes. She would have a G tube. She would be on chronic steroids. She would be on chronic antibiotics. And we were told that she would never survive the flu or a cold, that she would die before we could even get her to the ER. So we were told all these things. And thankfully, she still has her eyes and she is able to perceive certain things. She also loves eating, and she continues to work on her eating with her feeding therapist. And so she doesn't have a G tube, and she's growing and she's gaining weight. And we have never put her on chronic steroids. We have never had to give her steroids, and we certainly have never put her on lifelong chronic antibiotics either. She has only received antibiotics whenever she had an infection. So don't be afraid to push back. Don't be afraid to advocate for your child. And you might encounter physicians, or the office of the physician might get very annoyed with you, and they might make you wait for 2 hours in a room unattended. And I would recommend and suggest that you don't take any of this personally. The medical system is not set up to care for children who have special needs and medically complex issues, because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of thinking, a lot of cognitive space, a lot of discussion. And the medical system is just not supportive of that type of time commitment. because the way the system is set up right now, it's, the physicians have to see maybe X amount of patients, say 20, for example. I'm making that number up. And so if you have one of those patients who takes up an hour of time, that reduces the number of patients that the physician can see. So moving on, the issues in the medical system and in healthcare, that is a completely different presentation. So stand firm in your knowledge, in your understanding, in your experience, and in your observations of your child. Like I said, no one knows your child better than you, and no one knows what's best for your child better than you do. So stand firm in that. Do not compromise. Do not stop pushing. Do not stop fighting. Do not stop asking questions, and do not stop reevaluating and taking inventory on what's working and what needs to be tweaked. Because maybe what was working last year is not working this year. So you might have to move the chess pieces around a little bit. So the best kept secrets from what I've learned thus far include the therapists. So therapists are amazing. They are so skilled and educated and knowledgeable, and they are so passionate about what they do, and they have a heart of gold. So there is a beautiful, amazing world of therapists who have years of experience, who not only provide support for your child, but they also provide support and hope for us as parents. And they introduce us to other parents, and they make connections for us, and they put us in touch with people who can really help us because they have such a great network and community. They know so many people, and they're so plugged in. So therapists are just amazing, in my opinion. I'm talking about occupational therapists, speech therapists, feeding therapists. Additionally, teachers. When you find an amazing school, when the time is right, these teachers are just angels from heaven, in my opinion. They are so creative, they are so loving, so nurturing, and they just create such an incredible environment for your child to really grow and develop and explore and learn. And so I'm very grateful for amazing teachers. I have found that nature has been incredible for my child, and there's a lot of literature published talking about the benefits of being in nature. The grass, the birds, the trees, the wind, the fresh air, the morning sunlight, all of these things are so amazing for us as adults and also for our children. Nervous system regulation has been a key component in the care that we have noticed for my daughter, as well as epigenetics. So I'm going to talk about these things in the subsequent slides. So the therapies we talked about already: occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech and communication, feeding therapy, hippotherapy, aquatic therapy, recreational therapy. So hippotherapy is when you receive, basically it's occupational therapy on a horse for the child. So it builds pelvic stability and it helps as they learn how to walk. Aquatic therapy is just phenomenal. The support that the water gives and the little bit of resistance that the water gives is incredible for really learning how to walk, learning how to support oneself, and also coordinating movements. Recreational therapy is therapy using daily activities. So it's using things that the child is already interested in and engaged with. So how to find the right teachers, how to find the right school. It's important that you ask around. So ask the other therapists. They might even make suggestions. Once they've spent some time with your child and they understand what your child's needs are, they might say, hey, you might want to look into this school or this school in the area. So do your homework, look into the schools, go and chat with the people there, do an interview, and observe. Observe how the teachers interact with the other students, observe the classroom size, the teacher to student ratio, and then really just tap into your heart, check in with how you're feeling about what you're observing and about what you're feeling in terms of the environment and the warmth, the nurturing aspect. So, like we were talking about for nature, the morning sunlight, grounding in the earth, grounding in the grass, the wind in the hair, birds chirping, trees, all of these things, qualities of nature, are so wonderful for our children. And it also helps with the sleep cycle, as it turns out. So, nervous system regulation, shifting from sympathetic to parasympathetic. So, the sympathetic system is basically fight or flight. This is kind of our reactive response. Parasympathetic is more of the relaxed, resting state. And parasympathetic is when you are open to receive, open to trying, creating, pushing the leading edge, open to failing and trying again, open to exploring. So we try to help our child shift from parasympathetic to sympathetic. So how do you do this? Well, what is helpful, what we have found, is music, singing, having a familiar caregiver, having a familiar comfort toy or blanket. Being in the water for my child definitely helps her shift into parasympathetic. Animals have also been really great, like a puppy, a dog, a family pet. And then nature. Being in nature helps her shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic. So, epigenetics is a critical factor when it comes to development. And what is epigenetics? It's basically the concept that there are other factors besides the actual genetic code that influence the gene expression. And so, what are these other factors? Having a loving, nurturing environment, having consistency and predictability, so a routine. Sleep is critically important. Music, nature, mental rehearsal, visualization, affirmations, self-confidence, belief in oneself, having self-worth. And so for these last two bullet points, this is where we as parents can affect the change, the self-confidence, the belief in oneself for our child. We can help cultivate their self-worth, cultivate their self-confidence, cultivate the belief that they have in themselves. And so you can do this through how you speak to your child, what you model around your child in their environment, using words of affirmation, using visualization techniques, using mental rehearsal. So for example, I tell my child a story, the same story that I've told her since she was born, where I basically talk about how she is hiking and walking and exploring and taking a bubble bath and seeing all of these different things. And I walk her through this visualization, this mental rehearsal, and I'm using affirmations throughout the story. And this is helping, I think, cultivate her self-worth, her belief in herself, and is using the techniques of visualization and affirmation and mental rehearsal to achieve these things. So you have to think outside the box. This is important, especially if you have a child with rare symptoms, rare conditions, rare needs. Maybe you're the first. Maybe your child will be the first. And maybe you're the only one right now. And maybe you're going to gain information that's going to help someone else. It's going to help another family. It's going to help another child. And that is what I am trying to do here. And so you also should think outside of the box when you think about how to structure your career, because maybe the trajectory that you are on is no longer going to work anymore. If your priorities are now your child and your priorities have completely shifted, and you need to have more time available and more flexibility available to give your child what they need. So I have some updated reflection on the concept basically of unconditional love. So I don't think I really understood unconditional love until I had my daughter. And I realized, what love truly is. So I don't really expect her to achieve or do certain things at a certain time. All I want to do is just support her and support her quality of life, give her quality of experiences, give her every opportunity to thrive, play, learn, grow, have fun. And so we had to shift our focus because, I was very type A with my expectations for her and, her timeline of development. And I was very intense in scheduling her therapies and her appointments. And, she really wasn't sleeping well. Part of her syndrome is a sleep disturbance issue. And we realized that, if she's crying through her therapies, she's in the sympathetic state. She's not really open to receiving, to learning, to trying, to growing. And so it's very counterintuitive to force her or, put her into these therapies when she is exhausted or hungry or tired. And so when we started to shift our focus from, just trying to get things done and get her to the therapy appointments, we shifted to focusing on the quality of her life and trying to get her into the parasympathetic state. Then she really started to be more open to trying and learning and doing more things in her therapy appointment. So I also have updated reflections on siblings. This is a personal choice, but what has been demonstrated in the literature is that having siblings actually supports the child's development in a positive way. And I think it goes both ways. So it is a gift to the neurotypical sibling or the neurotypical child to actually grow up with a neurodivergent sibling. It helps develop their compassion, their empathy, their emotional intelligence, and it gives them different perspectives. So I think it's a beautiful thing for our daughter to have her little brother. And it's a beautiful thing for our little son to have his older sister. So a wonderful quote that I came across by Dr. Dan Siegel is that when we attune with others, so when we attune with others, we allow our internal state to shift, to come to resonate with the inner world of another. And so what I learned is that when I attune to my child, I gain a lot of information. And so we all have the power to do this. We all have the power to attune to our child, to tap in, to feel, to understand, and to sync our nervous system to theirs. And this attunement is what informs service. It then gives you more information for how you can support and serve your child. So like I mentioned before, being flexible and adapting, being able to adapt quickly is of the utmost critical importance. You have to bob and weave in your identity, in your career, in your marriage, in your role as a parent, in how you see yourself in this world, in this lifetime. You need to cultivate the courage to keep taking one step at a time and putting one foot in front of the other, despite the chaos, in the face of chaos, in the face of filth, pain, misery, uncertainty, grief. Like we said before, it is all welcome here. The beauty, the ugly, the shame, the guilt, you name it, it is all welcome. And you are more than capable of navigating everything and anything. So the critical factor is flexibility, as we have identified. Practicing flexibility and adaptability in your mindset, in your self-identity, in your career, in how you solve problems, maintaining your strong self-confidence and belief in yourself in order to continue to persist with this high level of flexibility. Because it takes a strong belief in yourself to be flexible and to bob and weave and to do things differently. You have to be very self-confident. You have to believe in your abilities. You have to know that if anyone can do it, it's you. So keeping the love alive, marriage keys to success. So these are some marriage principles and keys to success that I have learned over the past 3.5 years that I would like to share with you. Some very specific keys and tips and tricks that we had to learn the hard way. So number one, communication. communication is the number one most important key to success in keeping your marriage strong throughout the journey, navigating special needs, of navigating this journey. Communication is vital. And so there are certain key words you can use in the communication that you have with your significant other that can convey the point that you're trying to make in a concise way and in a way that your partner will receive it. So, for example, if your bandwidth is limited, you can say, "My window is closed." So that means when your partner wants to talk about X, Y, and Z, and you just don't have the mental capacity or the bandwidth to have that conversation, all you have to say is, "My window is closed." And then that signals to your partner that, okay, now it's not the right time. Let's table this. Let's put a pin in it. We'll bring it up tomorrow. We'll bring it up later tonight, something like that. Or you could use the colors red, yellow, and green. Green means you're fully open and able, and your bandwidth, you have the bandwidth to have this conversation. Yellow means, your window is closing, you don't really have much capacity, but you're willing to try. Red means absolutely not, let's table this for another time. So another important phrase is, "Thank you for bringing that to me. What else?" And this is a good response when you or your partner is raising a concern or raising an issue or raising a criticism. It is very easy to want to respond with a defense statement or defend yourself, take things personally. But instead, if you just listen and you say, "Thank you for bringing that to me. What else? What more?" then it makes your partner feel like you truly care what they are saying, you truly care how they feel, more than you care about defending yourself or being right or seeming to be right. Another key point is to clarify, do you want me to listen or do you want a solution? Because sometimes we want to communicate just to communicate to be heard. And we don't really want a solution. We're not asking for help with problem solving. So it is nice to get that out of the way ahead of time and to clarify if you want someone to just listen or if you want your partner to provide you with a solution. And then using the phrase, "you're right," has also been transformational. And this goes along with the concept of not being defensive and not trying to make yourself seem like you did everything right, but instead to point out to the other person that they're right, especially if they are providing you with a critique or something that they notice that they're unhappy with, that they would like to change. Giving that validation of "you're right" really helps put down the guns, And so that helps open the lines for deeper connection and communication. It's also important to establish core values. Talk with your partner, your significant other, and establish the core values for your family, for your marriage, and for your home environment. Keep these values at the forefront of the mind whenever you're making decisions together as a couple or as a family. Some examples of these values, the core values, might be integrity, honesty, warmth, connection. Those are some examples. So you can also seek out external support in the form of marriage counseling, to seek a third party, a mediator, someone who can help you develop tools for your communication and tools for navigating this challenging journey. I read a paper recently that said the majority of marriages end in divorce when caring for a child with special needs or medically complex issues. There are a lot of challenges that come up, and there's a toll. There's a lot of stress that's placed on finances, on the marriage, on the home environment. And so seeking external support can be a very intelligent idea to help preserve your marriage and strengthen it. Also, internal support. If you're able to have someone care for your child so that you can have time to reconnect to yourself, to each other, to your significant other, and have time to sleep, shower, plan, think, do your hobbies. It's important to give each other also the space to reflect and process and feel, because we each, as individuals, we go through our own healing journey and processing and feeling journey, our own timeline. And so you and your significant other might not always be synced up on the same timeline in terms of processing and feeling, especially as you have the hills and valleys that, the ups and downs that you will experience on this journey. So what I like to remember is that it's never going to be 50-50. Instead, it's always going to be 100-100. So you just have to know that you are always giving 100 and your significant other is always giving 100, and it might look different. Your 100 might look different from your significant other's 100, but it doesn't mean that it's not their 100 and that's not your 100. So comparison is the thief of joy. And this is an important thing to remember. It's important to try not to compare yourself to other people. Don't compare your child to other people. Don't compare your marriage to other marriages. Don't compare your family to other families. Don't compare what you think you're doing to what you think your partner is doing either. So this framework, these next few slides that we're going to go through, the acronym is SCATE, SCATE. Surrender, change your beliefs, attune, transform, and evolve. This framework came from helping my child breathe one night. So what happened was, my child was born with something called choanal atresia, which basically means the back of her nasal passageway is very narrow, and it was completely sealed off on one side, and so she only had one little narrow passageway to breathe from. And so if she ever got sick or if she cried and that got congested with mucus, then she had no way to breathe. And so there was one night where she was really struggling to breathe and was having a very hard time accepting the fact that my little child, my baby, couldn't breathe. I just couldn't imagine, what in the world, what kind of world I live in where this is happening. And so I was very caught up in my emotions. I didn't know what to do. And we were thinking about calling 911, taking her to the hospital, but then we thought, what would they do there? And so I basically ended up accepting that, okay, this is happening. And I, after kind of pleading with the devil and angels and heaven and you name it, just basically ripping my skin off my chest, like not knowing what to do and trying to envision, like, what if I could just give her my breath? What if I could just give her my nasal passageway? What if I could just give her my lungs? What if I could just replace everything? And all this sort of fantasy thinking. I finally reminded myself, like, hey, she chose me as her mother for a reason, and I have the knowledge, I have the skills, I have the ability to help her, and if anyone can help her, it's me. Maybe it's only me. And so then I started to think, okay, like, what do I need to do to actually help her breathe? And then it all made sense to me. I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I thought, okay, what tools do I have available to me in this apartment? And so I got her pediatric nasal sucker, and I figured out I just need to tent over her septum to open up her one passageway. And so I did that. And then to my surprise, all of this mucus came out of the closed off passageway. And so it had filled up with so much mucus that it was bowing against, it was pushing her septum over and completely closing off her one patent airway, her one patent passageway. And so we finally figured out, well, the secret to keeping her breathing is to clean out the blind pouch, clean out the side that was filling up with mucus. And so then she was able to breathe. And we figured out that. And, that led us down the road to figuring out more stuff for her and eventually planning the surgical procedure to help open up that passageway for her once she got big enough. And so this framework has really helped me navigate more challenges that have come up within myself and also in my external environment. So surrender, change your beliefs, attune, transform, and evolve. So we'll go through each one by one. So these are the 5 steps to freedom. And my wish and intention is that this framework can be a reminder of the power within you and help you tap into that power to achieve the life of your dreams. So surrender means letting go of denial, letting go of anger, letting go of resistance. So you have to be aware that you are even having anger, denial, resistance. And so change your beliefs. So first you have to identify the limiting beliefs. Identify what is holding you back. Reflect and remember who you are. And remember that your child has chosen you for a reason. So empower yourself with empowering beliefs. Flip around those limiting beliefs. Flip around the beliefs that are creating resistance and flip them around into empowering beliefs. Pull the curtain back on the unconscious negative chatter that you have going on in your head. Become conscious of it, become aware of it, and then replace that negative self-talk with positive, empowering, uplifting self-talk. The third step is to attune to this empowered self. So once you have replaced your negative self-talk with more empowered self-talk, positive, uplifting self-talk, attune to that self. And attuning to that self is what's going to inform service. It's going to inform the action steps that you need to take. From that space, you're going to get very intelligent ideas, creative ideas, new ideas. It's Albert Einstein who says that we cannot create solutions from the same state of mind that created the problem or that is experiencing the problem. You have to be in a completely different state to generate the solutions and to have those intelligent solutions and creative solutions. So the next step is transform. Once you apply those action steps, then you will observe and notice the transformation. So, for example, the action step might be take a walk in nature, work out, journal, write a book, start cooking for your child, put your child in the water more, get your child into nature more. Sometimes the action step might not make any sense, but once you implement it, then you will see the results and you trust the process. You just have to trust it. So the last and final step number 5 is evolve. And I like to call this inevitable evolution, because as you continue to apply the action steps and transform, your evolution is just inevitable. Through applying steps 1 through 4, surrender, change your beliefs, attune, and transform, you inevitably evolve. And you just keep repeating the cycle, rinse and repeat. You can apply it retroactively. You can apply it prospectively into the future. You can use your imagination to dream bigger and to imagine a world where it's all possible, where you can have it all. And you can use mental rehearsal, visualization as applied to your child as well, and for how you want to feel and how you want to be and the space that you want to hold and provide for yourself and for your child and your family. So this is where creating that cognitive space for yourself and to create the time, to think creatively, to think differently, to think outside the box, this is where it's vitally important. So to summarize, surrender, change your beliefs, attune, transform, and evolve. These are the 5 steps to freedom. This is the framework that has been transformational and very impactful in my life. So, the topic of radical love and acceptance is also critically important. As you radically love and accept yourself and practice unconditional love with yourself and love yourself the way your dog loves you, you will also have unconditional radical love and acceptance for your child. And you can easily say it is all welcome here. Whatever your child presents to you, whatever feelings, whatever behavior, you can welcome it, you can accept it, you can receive it, and then you can put yourself in a parasympathetic state instead of a sympathetic state. And you can think more creatively. And then use the technique of saying, what else? What more? Is there more? As you do when you speak with your partner or your significant other. It is all welcome. And so remember in the beginning we said when you're hit with this diagnosis that your child might have disabilities, special needs, medically complex issues, it's very easy to first think, well, my life is over. It's all over. But instead, I'm here to remind you it is not all over. Instead, a new life begins. Amplify joy, lean into the joy, celebrate the wins. It's easy to get caught up with the difficulties, with the challenges, with the uncertainty. And so it's easy to gloss over the little wins or the little improvements. And you have to remind yourself to celebrate those wins, see those wins, identify those wins, and celebrate them big time. It's important to uplift the spirit, uplift your spirit, boost connection, community, and remember that special needs empowerment starts with empowered parents. And so this is my message to you, especially if you're a type A high achiever, as I am. You need to let go of control and you need to let go of the need for certainty. The sooner you can let it go, the better. And you might have to remind yourself every day. This might even be a minute-to-minute practice at first. Learn to live in the present moment and create more space in the present moment, more space for yourself and more space for you to tune into your child, attune to your child. What if there is a future that is so bright and beautiful and amazing that your current mind can't even fathom it? Surrender to this possibility. Surrender to the unknown. Surrender to what is possible. Like we discussed earlier, determine your core values as a family and come back to these and live from these core values and make decisions from these core values. You won't always be able to see 10 steps ahead. You won't be able to see all the journey ahead of you anymore, and that's okay. Maybe you will see one step ahead, and then the next step, and then the next step. And you have to have the courage and faith to take each step forward and keep moving forward one step at a time, not knowing where it's going, but knowing with 100% confidence that you are exactly where you're supposed to be right here, right now. Build your team, build your support system. Curate your handpicked team, therapist, childcare personnel, etc. You have to trust your heart. You have to trust your judge of character in order to curate your handpicked team for your child. And let me ask you this. What if your child picked you for all that you are? I do believe that our children pick us as parents before they come through to this side. You and your partner were handpicked for a reason. So reflect on that. Lean into those qualities that you think your child picked you for. And be open to surrendering to the unknown future that lies ahead. The more unknown and the less certainty, the better. Just tell yourself that. All of this or something better, because your mind currently might not be evolved enough right now to even be able to imagine and envision all of the amazing things that are possible. And you're not alone ever. Seek help, friends, family, community, medical professionals, therapists, PT, OT, mental health therapists, marriage counselors, social workers, financial planners, estate lawyers, special needs lawyers, your faith, your spirituality. This journey is a spiritual journey. So this is where you can find me. My Instagram is listed here, and YouTube. I have a blog and email with any questions. Thank you.